Amazon today is one of the most valuable companies in the world, but between 1999 and 2001, their share price plummeted by 90%. That means that if you invested in 1999 at the high point and sold 2 years later at the low point, you would have lost 90% of your money. Today, that catastrophe isn't even a noticeable blip on their price chart, and anyone who sold back in 2001 will be kicking themselves, as Amazon's share price has risen by over 10,000% since then. The way most people invest means they will be kicking themselves, as holding on to an investment for a long period of time is a common problem and a key reason why many investors lose money. And in this video, we're going to go through the 5 common reasons why 90% of investors lose money. If you're new to the channel, I'm Alex, and my day job is a management consultant. On this channel, we like to talk about all things finance with particular focus on how to grow your money. So let's get into it. Reason number 1 is buying and selling at the wrong time to chase performance. Many investors try to time the market in buying low and selling high with a short-term view to chase returns. No perfect equation exists to tell us exactly how share prices will behave over time, which means that trying to time the market can be painful. You may sell too quickly or you may buy too late. And it's often just better to hold on to your investments in the long term. Go through those tough times and avoid making panic-driven decisions. If you panic and sell shares in a tough time, you'll probably miss out on the best days of market performance, since historically the market's worst days are followed by its best days. And you need to make sure you're invested on the good days, as they can have a huge impact on your performance. If we take an example where you had invested £1,000 in a fund tracking the FTSE 100 in 1998 and missed the market's best 30 days over the next 24 years, this is a bit unrealistic, but let's roll with it. Then in this case, you would have an average annual return of 3.38%. But let's say you had invested in the FTSE 100 the entire 24 years and didn't miss those 30 best days. In that case, your average annual return would have worked out at 8.31%. So the difference is a huge 4.93% in annual returns for a matter of just 30 days over 24 years. And these figures make a point. They make a point that trying to time the market, if you don't know what you're doing, can be very, very costly. And the time you hold on to your investments is a key factor in determining the success of the investments. But unfortunately, impatience is a common problem with investors, myself included when I started investing. Investors nowadays hold on to their shares for just 0.8 years before selling them, according to Finder.com. Whereas in 1980, the average was 9.7 years, representing a decline of almost 92%. And this has been a key reason why many investors have failed. Buying and selling in the short term is hugely volatile, and doing this increases your chance of failure. So that's reason 1. Buying and selling in the short term, exposing yourself to market volatilities in order to try and chase performance. Reason number 2 is not understanding the investment. You need to be able to answer questions such as, what is it? How does it work? Who's behind it? And how easy is it to get my money out of? You need to understand all of these things before you invest in whatever that may be. It's vital that you know what you're putting your money into. But unfortunately, many people don't clue themselves up on this and get into problems. For example, some investments are really easy to get into, but if your plans change, they might not be easy to get your money out of. There may be limited ways to sell and get your money. There may be fees as well. And the more high risk investments tend to fit into this category, they tend to be more complicated. And these kind of investments are more suited to those who have experience in financial markets. But often people investing in the large majority of people investing in them don't know what to do, don't know what they are, can't get their money out of them, and it causes them problems. It causes them to lose money. So that's reason number 2. Investors skipping out the small print details and not understanding what they're really getting themselves in for. Reason number 3 is investing on emotion. When investing, we need to be unemotional. I know this is much easier said than done, as we all feel guilty of being too emotional with decisions we make in life, and with investing this is no different. But investing on emotion has a huge negative impact on portfolio performance generally, and there's so many examples of emotional biases which do not help investment performance. For example, when markets dive, too many investors panic and hit that sell button, and that locks in losses. And in the opposite scenario, when shares have a good spell and markets are doing well, too many investors go on a buying spree and are buying at the high point. Another emotional bias is when others buy and sell, and we see others buy and sell, we tend to follow them with a herd mentality, even when in a lot of cases they're not right. And given all of this, all these emotional biases often lead to investors losing money. Reason number 4 is a combination of two things: in investing without an emergency fund and investing more than you can afford to lose. First and foremost, too many investors invest without an emergency fund. And that means that when an emergency knocks on the door, those investors will probably need to sell their investments to fund the emergency and then face making a loss as they're selling at a point they don't want to sell. This is not something those investors want or any investor wants, as it often leads to investing failure. And the other issue here with this point is that even when investors have an emergency fund, they often invest more than they can afford to lose. There's this common myth around investing that you need to be rich and you need to invest a shed load of cash to be an investor. Bullshit. Particularly bullshit when it comes to stock market investing, thanks to the invention of something called fractional investing, meaning that you can invest in a slice of a stock from as little as £1. And the way many investors do this, many successful investors who stick to their limits do this, is they tend to drip feed affordable amounts on a regular basis into investments in an approach known as pound cost averaging or dollar cost averaging, depending on where you are in the world. And through this approach, investors tend to only invest within their means and don't overcommit to a lump sum. They often just invest a percentage of their paycheck every month, something which is affordable to them, something which doesn't set them up for failure because they're not investing more than they can afford to lose. Investing more than you can afford to lose often leads to failures, as if something comes out of the blue and you need that money, then you'll probably sell the investments to fund it. And you'll sell the investments again at a time where you don't want to sell and you could make a loss. So this is another reason why many investors fail and lose money. Reason number 5 is failing to align the investment with risk tolerance. Of course, every investment carries some degree of risk, and generally, the higher the potential return, the higher the risk of losing your money. Unfortunately, many investors don't get this balance right, and a lot of the time, the investment is up here, the investment risk is up here, and the risk tolerance of the investor is somewhere here. So the investment is too risky for them. And in these cases, investors aren't asking a simple but important question, whether they're prepared to risk losing some, if not all, of their money if things went wrong. And this means that they often take too much risk, and when markets experience a bump, they often make an emotional decision to cash up and avoid taking a loss or avoid losing it all. And this leads to investing failure. This imbalance can also happen in the opposite scenario, where the investor has a risk tolerance up here, they're willing to take high risk, but the investment is down here. And this happens quite a lot, believe it or not. There's a lot of people in their 20s who don't need the money for over 15 years, and they're willing to take risk, but they're investing in government bonds, for example, which is less risky, and they're more suited to putting their money in the stock market in a medium to high risk fund to gain higher returns compared to a government bond, which has a limited ceiling of return. So in that case, you might not be losing money, the investors aren't losing money, but they're not getting as high returns as they could be, and that's still investing failure. And on that note, that's it. That's the 5 reasons. There's many more pitfalls, but I see these 5 as the main ones contributing to 90% of investors failing. If you can avoid these 5, then there's a good chance that you won't fail like 90% of investors. And to help keep you on course with a long-term mindset and avoid these 5 reasons, a platform such as Invest Engine will definitely help, as this has great automation features to help you put a little bit away every month in a pound cost, dollar cost averaging approach. And if you want to check out my review of that platform, just click around here. Thanks, guys.